All right, hello everybody. This is the first video that I'm doing from a series that I'd like to do on various R packages. Just real quick, R is basically a software or a library that allows us to work with various data sets and to do statistical analyses and so on. And it has, thanks to the wonderful community that supports it, just a vast set of packages that allows us to do very interesting things with data without writing too much code. The thing that I'd like to cover today is this Google visualization package, or Google Viz. The Google Viz package is a way to interact with the Google Visualization API, which in itself gives us access to the Google visualization tools. These Google visualization tools basically allow us to create interesting, dynamic, interactive visualizations of data directly in our browsers. Um, so this set of tools is easy to use, it's quick, powerful, and I just like to talk about it really quickly. And I'm not going to get into too many details because I don't want to talk about things that I don't understand 100%. I don't want to get myself in trouble. Um, but I'd just like to do a quick overview and just give you an idea about how cool this Google Viz package is. I'm going to talk about one specific type of visualization that the Google Viz package allows us to do called a motion chart. And um, some of you may have seen that on gapminder.com. For those of you who haven't, just go to gapminder.com and check it out. But a motion chart, as you'll see, is a smart way to visualize multiple dimensions, data with multiple dimensions in one ostensibly two-dimensional graph. So all right, let's just dive in. All right, so first of all, here's my R GUI, and I've loaded the necessary packages already. I'm not going to talk about how I did that because I figure most of you can figure that out pretty easily. So here's the Google Viz package. It's loaded up, and the required package that it loads automatically is this RJSON-IO. The RJSON-IO package basically takes our objects, our data sets, our data arrays, whatever, and transforms them into sets of JSON documents that we can then put in our JavaScript and our HTML so that we can transfer the data. Okay, so here we go. Let's go ahead and load up a data set that I'd like to use for the purposes of this overview. And I'd like to just note that this data set isn't particularly complicated, or it's not real, that's for sure. It's just something I made up kind of on the fly just for the purposes of this. And here's what it looks like, all right? All right, here we go. It's a multidimensional data set which consists of information about a firm's various products. So let's say that this firm has 4 different products: tinfoil, air freshener, soap, detergent. It sells it at Walmart, and here we have revenue, cost, profit, and market size data for each product for each year. So we have a multidimensional data set, and obviously business analysts who work in business will be familiar with this, and you know this happens a lot. Obviously, that's why we use things like cubes and so on, pivot tables and whatnot. But anyway, so this is just another way of dealing with multidimensional data that's free and easy. So all right, here's our multidimensional data. I'd like to take this data and I'd like to visualize it using the Google Viz package in a way that will allow us to explore it quickly and efficiently. So I'm not going to get into the actual commands. I'll let whoever's interested in this package explore those commands on their own. But just for now, suffice it to say that the way it works is we just create an object. I'm just going to call it visualization1, and in this object we're going to store the results of this function, of the motion chart function, which is included in the Google Viz GViz package. And this function is going to take as its input this entire data set. It's going to require an ID variable. This ID variable is the variable around which the entire chart set will be organized, and you'll see what I mean. But I'm going to use the product in this case for this example. And it also requires a time variable, which in this case we'll say is stored in the year column. Okay, so all right, this looks good, and we're just going to go ahead and plot the results. Okay, and here it is. Okay, so these two lines of codes produce all this, and I'm going to show you just how much they really produce because it really is a lot. Um, so, all right, let's take a look around. So what we have here as the outcome is an ostensibly two-dimensional chart, two-dimensional graph, dimension 1, dimension 2, but in reality, the way this is set up will allow us to explore more than 2 dimensions using the tools of the motion chart. Okay, so let's look at this. All right, so on each axis, we can have any one of the of the 4 dimensions we have here: the market size, revenues, costs, profits. So let's go ahead and put revenues as our x-axis. Well, let's say that we're interested in seeing how well we're generating profits out of the revenues here. So, all right, so far so good. But instead of confining ourselves to these 2 dimensions, we can add 2 more using the color option and the size option of the graph. The color option is going to color each product, right? So each one of these circles is a product. Is going to color each of the product circles based on, say, the costs of producing each profit. And the size button will allow us to transform the size of each of these product circles according to, let's say, the market size of the product itself. So just like that, we have visualized 4 different dimensions on one ostensibly 2-dimensional graph. Right? We have revenues on the x-axis, profits here, and then the color talks to us about the costs, whereas the size of the circle talks to us about the market size of the product. All right, we can add a 5th dimension, or we can see how all 4 of these evolve as a function of time, thanks to the motion property of the motion chart, right? Pretty self-explanatory. Look at this. I mean, I can just hit play here, and as soon as I hit play, this chart is going to show us how all 4 of these dimensions evolve as a function of time. So I hit play, and everything is changing all together, and we get a visualization of all 4 dimensions as a function of time. So as you can see, the colors are changing to show us how the costs of each product are evolving. And on top of that, the sizes of the circles are changing, so we can see how the market size is changing over time. So we see revenues, profits, costs, and market size all evolving as a function of time. So that's really cool, and I mean it also allows you to do logarithmic transformations, but so that's also pretty cool. On top here, it actually allows you to transform this into either a bar graph, which is pretty self-explanatory, or a nice and tidy line graph. And this line graph also is able to host multiple dimensions, even though it seems ostensibly 2-dimensional. So up here we can have profits, say the y-axis tells us about the profits, but the color of each line can tell us about costs, can tell us about the market size, can tell us about revenues. So see, for example, here we can see that this product, the detergent product, has seen its revenues kind of decline here, then rise, and then rise just based on how the color of the line is changing. While we also get to see how its profits are changing over time. So that is also pretty cool. So all this we got with literally 2 lines of code, and obviously just whatever it takes to load up the data. If I wasn't explaining all this in real time, it probably would have taken about 30 seconds to do this whole thing. And obviously both the Google Visualization API and the R package and the R libraries are free. I mean, they're free, right? So this is a very cost-efficient way to do a very quick, very useful visualization. And also, obviously, I mean, this data set is really straightforward. So, maybe it doesn't look all that impressive just because the data set itself is pretty small. But, I mean, if you have, a bunch of different products, like 20 different products, and you have more years here and so on, this becomes very revealing and very impressive and very useful. And you can draw quite a bit of sort of preliminary insight from it. And again, it takes just very little time to create it. I'm not going to talk too much about how Google Viz actually creates this thing, but I will just address just a couple of interesting things. First of all, we can look at the code that the Google Viz package produces for us, just to see what it looks like. All right, so the Google Viz package wrote this code for us, more or less, not exactly, but kind of. And we can just take a quick look at how the code looks just to get an idea of how it works. So the first thing up here that we have is a call to this this API that Google hosts. And obviously, as soon as we see this, we know that we're going to need an internet connection to be able to do this whole procedure. And we need the internet connection, obviously, so we can link to this API here that Google hosts. But the cool thing is that the rendering of this whole code is done locally, right? I mean, we do it locally, which means that your data, in this case and in most other cases, will not leave your computer. This data did not get sent to Google or to any other server. It stayed here. It stayed local. It was rendered locally, and that's pretty cool, especially if you're thinking about possibly using this in a business environment, because you know that, except for a few specific circumstances, your data is going to stay within the confines of your own computer. And I'm sure that a lot of people will appreciate that. But you do need the internet connection to be able to access the API. And then from here on out, we'll just have whatever JavaScript functions we need to to produce the chart. And I'll just point out too that a lot of this code is just the JSON documents that our JSON.io created for us. Our JSON.io took this data here, and it produced this set of our JSON documents that we can use in our HTML, JavaScript, whatever code. So, really straightforward. I mean, look, it's not even all that much code. Most of it is just the JSON documents. So again, it's straightforward. It's easy to do. I mean, I think this line of code is very self-explanatory. So I encourage you to download the Google Viz package and just play around with it, see what you can do with it, because the power of these motion charts is very impressive, especially if you have large data sets, and especially given the fact that you can do all this for free and in a matter of minutes. Last thing, Google Viz is absolutely not confined to motion charts. I just did motion charts just because it's probably kind of the most, I don't want to say the most interesting, that's not the right word to use, but it's just one of the more interesting aspects of Google Viz. But Google Viz has many other types of visualizations that it can do via the Google Visualization API. So download it, play around with it, and I will do more of these overviews, including overviews of more Google Viz chart types later on. But that is it for now, and I hope that everybody enjoyed this. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll talk to you again soon, I hope.